it's not the lack of funds or the lack of profitability or lack of money that's holding these entrepreneurial souls back. It's certainly not the lack of skill set, because their willingness and capacity to learn is huge. But what I found out was a very much a mirror image of my personal story, which I'll share with you today, is what I call the ducks. And you know what? They're not that cute. We think of these little ducks going along the lake, and, you know, they are very cute when you see them at, say, you're out camping, for example, by the lake. And I know we do a lot of that in Canada in the summertime, lots of camping. And so my family attenders. And so, you know, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as the duck family goes by the tent, you know, on the lake, oh, it's like, oh, aren't they beautiful? But, you know, after, you know, I'm originally from Australia as well. So I can say, you know, I've had a couple of beverages around the campfire in my time. And when you wake up in the morning and the ducks are squawking incessantly, they're not that cute anymore. And that's that's how I came up with, well, one of the various different reasons of how I came up with the title of Shut the Duck Up. Because honestly, when I heard those ducks squawking at 5 a.m. and I was feeling a little delicate, you know, from a couple of wines the night before, that I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds like all these negative, crazy thoughts that are in my head that literally are lies that I'm telling myself, and they're holding me back, and in life, in business, and I didn't want that anymore. So I went searching, I went hunting, I went researching on how to get rid of these ducks in my head. And when I'm coaching and consulting, I hear ducks coming out of people's mouths all the time.
Yes.
So the I'm not good enough, the I shouldn't do that, anything with a should or enough, or generally those particular words that I listen for are related to a duck. And it's like, okay, let me teach you some really simple tools on how to do some duck hunting. So that's what we'll do today, is do a little duck hunting, I hope. I'll give you the super easy ways. And also, what happens to we'll look at your behavior. What happens to your behavior when a duck squawks in your head and you choose to believe it? Because it is like, if anyone on the call has ever quit smoking or quit Diet Coke, or God forbid, quit cheesecake.
For me, that'd be chocolate.
Right? You know, it's like there's some point where you have to draw the line in the sand and say, okay, enough. I'm not doing this again. We're all able to make that decision today. Draw the line in the sand and say, no more. You know, literally break up that cigarette in half and say, I'm not going to smoke that. I'm not going to smoke the stuff the duck is giving me anymore. Ed, welcome to Shut the Duck Up. Finally, a simple, easy, and once we get over the fact that everything has to be hard in order to be impactful, you know, that's one duck we need to shut up, number one. And number two is the simple, easy to use tools that once you practice, it's kind of like yoga. You know, you can't do a downward dog, or I couldn't, you know, unless I fell over really quickly the first time. But now I can hold it for up to 5 minutes. So this is a practice of recognizing your ducks, questioning them, and identifying what is your truth. So I need to caveat this presentation with saying I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a, I would say I'm a neuroplastician, but we all are, and I'll get to that. And it's what I am as a business coach and consultant, and a woman that literally from a very, very young age has been plagued by stinking thinking all my life. I thought, oh my goodness, if I could just get rid of these thoughts about myself in my head, life would be so much easier. And then I found it. And it was like, a miracle happened. So Shut the Duck Up is how to stop negative thoughts from holding you back in success in both life and business. Because I believe life and business are like this. They're intertwined, especially if you're a woman in business. They squawk incessantly. They do. Did you know we have 48 thoughts per minute? 48 conscious thoughts per minute. That's not the unconscious thoughts that make our hearts, beat or our eyes blink or our lungs to breathe, but 48 conscious thoughts a minute. That equals 70,000 conscious thoughts per day.
Wow.
And if you follow, I did a lot of research around the area of psychology, including Psychology Today magazine out of the United States. And the research says that 70% of those thoughts are negative thoughts about ourselves. And for me, that was like what was that? 70% of the thoughts that you think in a day are negative thoughts about yourself. What would your life look like if you were able to flip that ratio and you had 70% of your thoughts being positive about yourself? That would be, for me, it's such a freeing experience. So with that said, I'm going to share a few of my ducks with you. This is that cute little annoying duck. So, you might be able to relate to a few of them. You might have some of your own. But these are some of the things that my ducks tell me. So you can't do that. It's always very negative. Or you're not smart enough. You'll never have what it takes. You're not strong enough. And for me, it's like I've got a big, fat, you're too fat duck. Because I am not Elle Macpherson or Twiggy. So I would say I'm bodaciously beautiful. But don't try. You'll just fail and embarrass yourself. And you're not valuable or you're not worthy. But most of all, I think as women in business, the most common duck I've ever seen is, I'm just not good enough. It's that big word, enough. So ducks can also come up as sneaky little ducks. So the sneaky little ducks come up when someone gives us a compliment. Someone will say, oh, nice dress. You look lovely. Oh, your hair. And you're thinking in your head, oh, I'm only wearing this dress because it's below the knee and it covers my thunder thighs. Or, it's like, I love the color of your hair. Yeah, you should see the real color underneath if I don't go to the hairdresser. And all those thoughts in your head of, you may, and worse, if you actually say them out loud and backhand the compliment that you've just been given, it makes the duck stronger in your head.
Yeah.
So, as you can see, we are now living in an absolute epidemic of toxic thoughts. And toxic thoughts leads to stress. We all know that stress is the #1 killer across the globe. So research shows that 87 to 95% of all mental and physical illnesses are a direct result of toxic thinking. We are literally thinking ourselves sick. Now, who wants that? So what happens is, until recently, we haven't had an owner's manual for mental processes that switch our brain into full cognitive power. Because only in the last 15 years, we've got MRIs and CT scans. Prior to that, we weren't actually, because, the people that we experimented on had passed away, so they were cadavers, that we weren't able to actually track brain activity of a live person. But with the new technology, don't we love it? New research has identified the mindset or mental attitude that enables higher brain order networks to function at optimum can stimulate growth of new connections in your brain. So that means once upon a time, we thought that the brain would stop growing at a certain particular age. For women, it was around 25. I think my brain actually stopped growing at 27 because that's how I feel in my head. And when I look in the mirror, I go, oh, not 27 anymore. So, but in your head, we thought that the brain would stop growing. But new technology is saying the brain actually regenerates itself and can regenerate ourselves based on our thoughts. And it is the concept called neuroplasticity. And we should all get new business cards because technically speaking, we're all neuroplasticians. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a neuroplastician. Doesn't that sound important? So the brain continually reorganizes itself, forming new neural connections throughout life, which means we literally become the person we think we are. We are not only affecting our emotional health, but our physical health as well. Now, on the flip side, on the happy side, is that we can actually rewire our brains for happiness. We can rewire our brains for success in life and business. And the implications are vast. It's incredible what we can think about ourselves and who we can become in rewiring those neurons in our brains. So all perceived sensory information, all conscious and unconscious thought, even in sleep, is transferred to long-term memory. And the brain can't tell what's real and what's not, believe it or not. And what happens is that all these neurons, well, let me show you a really simple example rather than getting too scientific on you. Basically, your brain looks like lots of trees. So basically, the sensory information in the neurons looks like this particular tree. And you can see your brain fueled by toxic thinking, the tree doesn't look that good. And in fact, every toxic thought that you think actually makes one of these branches thicker and darker. And you can see by the scans, look, this is somebody who's stressed and depressed, and these are scans from the Mayo Foundation of active brains and someone who's stressed and depressed. Super, super dark in the scans, very little green, very little light. So down here, again, super, super dark, very little green, very little light. And this is the brain fueled on toxic thinking. Over here, this is the brain that I want to keep building every day for the rest of my life, is the brain fueled on positive thinking. Go back to the scan and look at this. It's light. It's generating new neurons with each positive thought. So basically, what happens is, for each positive thought that you think, based on the truth, I'm not talking unicorns, rainbows, it's not based on stuff you don't actually believe. It's based on the truth. So we're going to identify what your truths are today. So your brain fueled on positive thinking gets stronger, more active, more light in the neuron scans of your brain, right? So hopefully that helps, you understand what the brain actually looks like, because these are the neuron branches in the brain. But the unfortunate thing is every single time we believe the duck to be true versus identifying it as a lie and refocusing on what the real truth is about who you are, these branches get thicker and blacker. Your brain gets darker. And your behavior doesn't look that grand either. So as we move forward, this again is the brain with a toxic thought versus a healthy thought. You're actually getting little effort. I'm not good enough, I should be doing this, but I'm not, or I'm too lazy, or I'm not worth it, or no one's going to buy my product, or all these negative, I was doing brain damage every time we have a negative thought. And the beautiful thing is that we have control to build a healthier brain from this day forward. If you start, it's not too late just to draw that line in the sand and say enough. From now on, I'm going for the healthy trees in my head versus the unhealthy trees. So when you're looking at, this is not new news. John C. Maxwell is a great gentleman who teaches on leadership all the time, one of my gurus. He says, once our minds are tattooed, so tattoos can be dark and black and with negative thinking, our chances for long-term success diminish. If you're walking around going, I'm not good enough, this isn't going to work, what are your chances of actually being successful? My personal story is my mom actually passed away from a brain degenerative disease a couple of years ago. And I was called by my family and said, Michelle, she's got 24 hours. You need to get on a plane. So I had hoped to be at her bedside. but sadly she passed before I got there. So somewhere I was over the Pacific Ocean. But I don't know if you've ever traveled from London to Australia, or whether it's any longer than from Canada to Australia, but it's a really long flight. So it gives you a lot of time to think. So I decided that, okay, as I was journaling through the emotions I was feeling about losing my mom, and my mom and I weren't super close. She had a very different lifestyle than what I did. And I looked at her life from an objective point of view, and I wonder if she's lying on her deathbed with any regrets, because she had thoughts that held her back. And I would hear her thoughts come out of her mouth all the time. And her biggest duck is, oh, I just can't be bothered. It wouldn't work out anyway. And that was another version of, I'm just not good enough. And I saw how those thoughts, as I reviewed her life in a compassionate way as I could, is I saw how those thoughts held her back. She didn't travel the way she said she wanted to. She didn't live her life the way she said she wanted to. In fact, she barely lived life at all. And then I thought, somewhere over Tokyo, so we had a layover in Tokyo. We were coming in, and then we jet set it off back to Australia. I thought, am I doing that too? All those negative thoughts in my head, and I had been plagued with negative thoughts forever. I was so well aware that they were there, as we all are, but I just couldn't figure out a way on how to get rid of them. And so what I did was I thought, you know what? I don't want to be on my deathbed, and I don't want anyone else to be on their deathbed, because we all get there eventually, having any regrets of, oh, I wish I had have done that, or I wish I had have built my business, or I wish I had have, done the family trip, or I wish I had have gone skydiving like I've always wanted to. Whatever you've always wanted to, now is the time to shut the duck up and do it. So my personal story was that I looked in the mirror long and hard as I flew back to Australia that night. And, it's pretty emotional. I was crying anyway because I was losing my mom, but I was crying for myself because I know I had done that to myself. And so what I did was I wrote down everything I've always wanted to do, but told myself I couldn't do it. And then I thought, you know what? It's enough. Shut the duck up. So I made that into a list. And when we came back from my mom's funeral, when we came back to Canada and got settled back in again, I took out the list and I said, okay, now is the time for a little guinea pig experiment on, can I shut up these ducks? So what I did is, each thing on my list that I'd always wanted to do was something I did once a month. So the first thing was, I went and took singing lessons. Believe it or not, when I was 17 or 18 in high school, I took vocal lessons in music. And what had happened was I was doing really well. So I used to show up at Stedford's or singing competitions, and I would actually win. At 17 years old, 18 years old, I would win.
Wow.
And so I won my very last one. I was almost 18, 6 foot tall and bulletproof, and almost 18. And if anyone's ever watched the movie Sing, this is who I identify with. And what had happened was that day I won the competition, and I had sung a operatic song, and I had sung, I was supposed to sing a folk song, but my vocal instructor had given me a pop song to sing, so that's what I sang. And even though I won that day, the very next day came a phone call from the adjudicators, and they said, I'm so sorry, Michelle, but we've had to disqualify you because you sang a pop song and not a folk song. And as 17 or 18, I was devastated. Not only that, okay, ladies, you're with me when I say frenemy, right? That my frenemy from high school had come in second. So now she was first and not me. And I was devastated. And because we went to the both went to the school, I had to take the trophy that I won to school and hand it over to her. Devastating for 17 years old. But you know what that experience, what I told myself from that experience is that I couldn't sing. I told myself, forget the winnings, forget everything else. You didn't lose because of a disqualification. You lost because you just can't sing. So for 30 some years, I stopped singing. I didn't sing in church. I didn't sing to my kids for their lullabies. I did not sing when my best friend and I went for a 14-hour road trip together, and she thought Billy Joel was her backup singer. And this, come on, Michelle, sing with me. It's like, no, I don't sing. I don't sing. Until finally it was at the top of the list. So I called a local vocal coach here in Rocky Mountain House, and I said, you know what? I just want one lesson. That's all I need, because I'm coming to prove a point that I can't sing. I just want you to actually tell me that I can't sing. So I went to my very first session, and it all came flooding back. How to breathe from the diaphragm, how to open and close your vocal cords, how to make a pitch sharp or soft, how to resonate from the top of your cheeks. All of that came back within about 15 minutes. And she said, what are you doing not singing? And I went, that's a really good question. Now my kids are like, oh, Mom, stop singing. It's such a freeing opportunity just to release that duck. And the pride I felt in myself changed my behavior for life. So that was one thing off my list. The second thing off my list was the I'm too fat duck. So my daughters and I, we like to do challenges. You can see I'm in the mud here. This is me climbing up obstacles. So this is something we have in Canada called Mud Hero. It is a 10K run with 30 some obstacles, and the obstacles are, really quite high. I'm climbing over a big ladder here and ropes and throwing things. Oh, it's so much fun. And you swim through mud pits, look at my face. I'm having so much fun. But again, setting out to prove the duck wrong, because the duck said, oh, you're not in any shape to do something like that. And so I decided, oh yeah, watch me. Round is actually a shape. So a round person could do this too. So as I went by, I'm thinking, what would I have missed if I hadn't done it? So here I'm here with my two daughters and one of their friends, and here I am with my two daughters before the race. And what would I have missed? What would listening to the duck have cost me? I would have sat on the sidelines and say, yeah, you go have a good time. I'll be at the finish line with a towel and a bottle of water. Go ahead. Rather than actually have my kids say to me, Mom, we're so incredibly proud of you. And when these pictures came out, I just went, oh my gosh, look at the rolls that are happening here. I had the ducks walking again. And my daughters actually said, Mom, shut the duck up. What we see is strength. What we see is determination, and we're doing it anyway. So I thought, you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm going to shut the duck up, because this is what strong looks like. Yeah. So also too, my duck said I have a terrible fear of heights. So you can see this, if you've never been to Canada, this is a place called Jasper. And this is halfway up a gondola to what we call the Sky Station. And it is on top of one of these mountains. They're so beautiful. And my duck said I had a fear of heights and I couldn't do it. But I got on the gondola, I went out, and I had the most amazing 365-degree view of the Rocky Mountains that I have ever seen. Thinking about if I had have listened to the duck and said, no, I'll just stay here, you go ahead and do it without me, what would I have missed? So sometimes we have to do things that prove the duck wrong. Here's another one of me. I had told myself I wanted to learn how to paddleboard for years, but the too fat duck, oh, you're too fat to do that. And the duck said, oh, you're going to sink it, so you better not borrow a friend's because you'll break it. And there will go the friendship as well. So finally, I went and rented a paddleboard. And this is my first paddleboard experience. And honestly, the feeling that comes with shutting the duck up is incredible. I'm not saying everyone needs to run out and get a paddleboard. But honestly, and I say I'm openly a Christian. So when I was on this day in a lake nearby Rocky Mountain House, paddling across this lake for the very first time. I was weeping of, oh my gosh, this is such an amazing experience. I'm pretty sure this is what Jesus felt like when he walked on water, because this is what it feels like to me. So when you were thinking about, proving the ducks wrong versus listening to them, and if I had not have got on a paddleboard, I would have missed the most amazing experience in my life. And it's all these little simple things that add up to big things. Because if I can be successful in a mud run, if I can be successful in overcoming the ducks to sing, to paddleboard, you build up that confidence by little steps. I can be successful in anything I set my mind to. Because literally, as the little red engine said, I think I can, as he putted up the hill. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I think I can. You can actually think that you can. So let's do a little duck hunting and move on. So the first step that I did, and the first step that I recommend that you do, is probably the toughest step you'll ever do in your life. And sometimes it's easier to do it with somebody else, whether it be a coach like myself, or whether it be a trusted friend or family member that you're okay falling apart with. Because the ducks, because they have been so ingrained with who you are and what you do and your emotions, when they're released, sometimes a lot of emotions are released as well, whether it be anger, whether it be a massive amount of tears. I would always say have the tissue box handy if you're going to sit down and do this by yourself or with a friend or with a coach. And you might say, oh, the ducks aren't coming. Once you write one down, you will get a flock coming out of your head, and you will probably have 2 or 3 pieces of paper of what the duck says to you. And what the duck says to you is related back to the I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable. And it's generally a I'm not or a I am type of statement, or people don't think I'm good enough, or people don't think my product is good enough. I'm not going to be successful in this business. All of those ducks. So take your time, grab a journal, and write them down, making sure that you allow the emotions to come with them, because it's a very cleansing process. So that's the first thing. And what happens in our brain is during that emotional time, the basal ganglia, which is at the back of the brain, this is where our emotions are stored, that just releases all the emotions that come with it. And I follow an amazing cognitive neuroscience. Her name is Dr. Caroline Leaf. She's out of South Africa. She has a PhD in communication technology. She says that it takes about 10 minutes per duck. So allocate that time. If you've got a ton of ducks, then take a couple of hours, go out to the patio or the veranda, have a cup of tea, and just let those ducks pour out in a private and safe place, or with a private and safe person. So every time, and they'll come. I guarantee, ladies, they will come. But we have about 10 minutes after they come to capture them. And literally, like we're, Elmer Fudd is doing to Daffy Duck on my screen here, blow their beaks off. Shut the duck up. So we have about 10 minutes, because what happens is a duck fires in our head from the subconscious, because it's a habit. We are so used to believing the ducks, and it affects our behavior, just like, smoking is a habit. Believing the duck is a habit. So when the duck comes from the subconscious and waddles into the conscious, logical thought centers of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, you have about 10 minutes to identify it, question it, and deal with it. Otherwise, we can do 2 things. We can ignore it, and it'll swim back into the subconscious, but it will be stronger, and it will have more negative effects. And that dark tree in your head will get stronger and bigger and darker. Or if we believe it to be true, then our behavior changes immediately. All of a sudden, we come to, oh, I can't make that phone call because it's too scary, or I'm not good enough, or they don't want to hear from me anyway, to not making the phone call and maybe going to the fridge and pulling out the ice cream. I mean, I know that's what I used to do. So thinking about what does the duck say to you? And then ask yourself, from a logical perspective, is the duck telling the truth? You know, when I went to look at the stats on the paddleboard, for example, the paddleboard can actually hold someone who weighs 375 pounds. I do not weigh 375 pounds, so logically I could actually stand on that paddleboard without it sinking. That was the truth. Not that if I stood on it, I would sink it and break it. So is the duck telling you the truth about what you are? Can you go on a little journey of finding evidence to prove it wrong? You know, and with a coach, the coach would draw that out and say, okay, tell me about a time when you felt proud of yourself, or tell me about a time when you felt worthy, or tell me about a time when you were successful. And more importantly, the next question you have to ask about the duck is, what happens and how do you behave when you believe that thought to be true? And we'll go through what I call self-defeating games in this presentation, because what generally happens if we believe the duck to be true and don't recognize it as a lie that we are telling ourselves, we move into what I call a self-defeating game. And that always is self-defeating and limits our success. And here's another question. If you believe the thought was a lie, if I believe the thought that I couldn't sing was a lie, which I now do believe, how would that change your behavior? If you believe the thought that the duck is saying that you cannot be successful in your business, and you said, no, that's a lie, I'm going to be super successful in my business, how would that change your behavior? Chances are you'd look into different marketing strategies, you'd go to a networking event, you would, connect with other women in business to support you in a tribe that you've already connected through Nicola's tribe. Is how would that change your behavior? And you would probably guess, and you're absolutely right, that you would have a 360-degree turn from looking towards, the good things in the bad things in your life of, I can't do that, I'm not worthy, no one will buy my product, all those kind of things, to, yeah, I'm going to go out and give this a shot. I'm going to go out and connect with my most valuable clients. I am going to market using what I need and engage and connect, and people will buy my stuff because they find value in it. So thinking about, how does your behavior change? So these are all the questions. When you identify the duck, these are the questions you need to answer to literally shut the duck up. So here's a few examples of those self-defeating games. When you believe the duck to be true, you'll probably go into lying or gossiping, blaming, criticizing, condemning, and hiding behind judgment of not only yourself but of others as well. Women are really, really good at tearing down each other to make ourselves feel better because we're not like them. In an actual fact, turn the mirror on yourself and you probably are. So being angry and starting a fight was my best behavior. I hate to say it, just ask my husband. So quitting and using the silent treatment and refusing to participate. So it's this isn't going to work, I'm just going to run over here and try something else. And you don't actually get anything done when you're multitasking, especially if you have too many products to sell, or you're not giving one product the attention it deserves. Always needing to be right. Who has that? Like, I'm always right, just ask me. Right? Getting them before they get me. Hiding behind confusion, breaking agreements, using drugs and alcohol, and I would also say food as a coping technique, controlling and manipulating. Procrastination is the greatest form of a self-defeating game, because we're running away from the ducks then. They're chasing after us. And having a whatever attitude. So these are some forms, and And I wonder how many, I've been really, really good at playing these self-defeating games in the past before I finally shut up my ducks. I have actually done this entire list within a period of 15. So let's look into that. Examples of self-defeating behavior. We've got a little peanuts on the avoidance self-defeating game, when we believe the duck to be true and we avoid whatever is in front of us. So we see here that I don't like to face problems head on. I think the best way to solve problems is just to avoid them. This is a distinct philosophy of mine, and no problem is so big or complicated that I can't run away from it. Who can identify with that?
Me.
Right? And we think that it's going to help us avoid getting hurt again. But what it does is that avoidance is a duck. And so that duck, if we run away from it, goes back into our subconscious. We go through all those self-defeating games again and again and again. And that destroys our relationships. It destroys our businesses again and again and again. So if you're thinking that your desperate desire is to start a business or scale your business to an international level, but you have this self-defeating behavior based on a duck that says, oh, you could never do that, so you avoid it, don't be lying on your deathbed saying, I wish I had started a business, or I wish I had have dealt with the person who I need to talk to tell them how much I love them, but they can't be in my life anymore because it's a toxic relationship. So thinking about, what are you doing in your self-defeating behaviors that are fueled by ducks? Once you get rid of the ducks, you get rid of the behaviors. So the next behavior is Mr. Perfect, the perfectionist. The duck says, I can't do anything until it's perfect.
Oh, that's my husband.
I can't launch my website. I can't do a presentation. I can't do anything like that until it's perfect. And ladies, really, is it ever really perfect? I think not. So sometimes you just have to jump off the cliff and make the parachute on the way down, even if you don't have the parachute, the perfect parachute on your back. So a person with low self-esteem or ducks may show some perfectionist behavior, thinking that being perfect will make everything okay. Trying to do things perfectly can cause enormous amounts of stress and anxiety, which of course certainly doesn't help your brain grow healthy trees in your head. And if you're expecting yourself to be perfect, you're probably expecting your spouse and your kids and your coworkers and everybody else around you to be perfect as well. And if they feel like they need to be perfect around you, chances are they're running for the hills. So what is next in our self-defeating behaviors? Hiding is the cousin of avoidance. So hiding behaviors occur when a person is ashamed or embarrassed to show their real self. If I'm pretty flamboyant and outgoing. Some people might say loud, and I say that's how I make a living. So it's the showing your real self is really important. Trying to cover up parts of your identity because a duck is saying, oh, Michelle, you need to be quieter, or, you need to literally, a duck that was put into my head by my father is, you have nothing good to say, so shut it. Right? So sometimes people plant ducks and you actually believe them until you say, shut the duck up. You know what? I have a voice. I have something to say. So people might try to cover up parts of their identity, their sexuality, their personality traits, or their appearance. And people with low self-esteem may engage in hiding behaviors because they feel it might make them more like everybody else. Well, girlfriends, let me tell you, nobody is like you. Nobody is like me. That's why we're unique. So it is our job in the world to shine as our unique, authentic selves. Stop hiding behind your ducks. Another one is being passive. So when people are passive, they don't stand up for their rights. They're like, yeah, someone says, yeah, this business probably won't work for you. You might have a a spouse or a mother or a cousin, that just to keep you safe, because being in business is risky, they want you to go out and get a real job. So at least, you'll make minimum wage, but you'll be safe. And that's how society has trained a lot of us, through the school systems. But if you want to be the risk taker and the entrepreneur, but you're listening to your ducks, and your self-defeating behavior is to hide and be passive, then passive people are those that are hunched in the corner of the room, their arms crossed, they might be tapping their feet. They have passive behaviors, including staying quiet when they really have something to say. And then they beat themselves up because they didn't really say what they needed to say. So believe me, if you have a duck saying you've got nothing to say, shut the duck up. It is true. The truth is, find your voice and live without regrets. Last but not least is, well, actually it's not last but not least, but it's the attention-seeking duck. So any kind of attention, good or bad, fuels this duck when someone goes into the self-defeating behavior of attention-seeking. So sometimes people with low self-esteem, or a lot of ducks, are concerned with getting the approval of others. So they act in ways that sometimes might be dangerous to them and to other people. Other times they are constantly seeking feedback from others. It's like, what do you think? What do you think? So what they're doing is they're trying to get a acknowledgement that the duck they're telling themselves is actually lying to them, without doing the work to identify what their truth is. So they're constantly seeking these positive affirmations from other people when it should be coming from the inside. So aggression. And you can see, sometimes a person can become aggressive as a way of shielding others from their own self-esteem. They literally become defensive and lash out at others. I know when I was having a lot of ducks, especially around my weight issues, and I must say, the difference between a duck and the truth is the level of emotion that comes with it. So I can actually sit here and say, for my height, believe it or not, I'm 5'1.5". I hold on to the half, ladies. If you checked my BMI, I would be obese. I would be in the overweight or obese category, compared to my BMI. So that's the truth. That's based on fact. It's logical. It comes with no emotion. So that's I can say that without actually feeling anything. But if I say I'm too fat to do Mud Hero, or I'm too fat to climb a mountain, or I'm too fat to do this, that comes with a whole bunch of emotion. So if you can feel the difference, to identify what is the truth versus what is the duck. And then what would happen is when I believe those ducks to be true, I would get really angry, and I would pick a fight with my husband, or I would just get really angry at myself. And, I probably wouldn't do anything healthy. I'd probably reach for the bottle of wine versus going for a run. So I would get really angry. So aggression was one of my favorite forms of self-defeating games. So let me tell you a story about my friend Sally. I've changed her name to protect her identity, but I've used her story with her permission. So Sally is in the financial services industry in Canada and has been successfully for 11 years. And she's built her client base, and she serves them all very, very well. But her ducks were holding me back. So she walked into my office and basically said, I think I need to quit my business. I think I'm going to get a day job pouring coffee, which would be, minimum wage in Alberta right now is $15 an hour. So we said, okay, so what's going on in your head that you're thinking that you're not successful in business? And she said, well, I'm not making enough money per hour. So we did some, what I call entrepreneurial math, and figured out that when she was with her clients, she was actually making about $80 an hour versus $15 an hour in a real job. So when you're thinking about that, logically, that makes no sense to walk away from the potential to earn $80 an hour to take on something that you don't like, you're not enjoying for $15 an hour. That makes no sense at all. So what I did was she knew she was taking up too much valuable time in self-defeating games for her business. She was avoiding her business because she was telling herself she was not a good financial coach, that people wouldn't listen to her, that she didn't have enough skill set. All her ducks were quacking. And so we spent a few sessions, 3 sessions, identifying her ducks. And then we questioned them.
Have you changed
And
slide there?
there we
Michelle?
go. Yep. Then we questioned them and identified what she came back to me, and it made my heart sing. I said, I want a list of truths about who you are. Now, Sally had also, it had come out, she had been bullied a lot as a kid in elementary school, primary school, and she had been sexually abused, and she had had a really unsupportive, well, she thought she had an unsupportive husband for her business. So we identified lots of these things, and it was many sessions that we finally came up with the truths that she looks at this list that I'm showing you every single day. And it's not affirmations, it's not rainbows, it's not unicorns, it's not something that you cannot believe to be true, because it's that belief system that's holding you back. So if you believe something to be a lie or you believe something to be true, you're the one who has to change your belief system. So this is how she changed hers. She made a duck truths list. So she says, I am smart enough to run my business. I know 10% more than most people. And guess what? When you know 10% more about a specific area than anybody else in the room, what does that make you? An expert. Exactly. She says, I know things about my business, and I know more people who know more things. So she had a tribe of people around her that if she didn't know the answer, she could go out to her network and find the answer. Now, this was a big one. I know how to spell, and I can find out how to spell more things, because Sally is dyslexic. So her math skills and her spelling skills, she thought were not good enough. But in all essence, she had the tools to overcome her dyslexia. I'm good with people, and I'm learning how to be better with people. I don't need to be outgoing to do my job efficiently. Sally was a little bit of an introvert, and that was perfect for who she needed to be. I'm skilled enough to do my job, and so on and so forth, right down to I believe I can do this business and will continue to do a good job for my client. And here's another one. She was almost about to leave her husband because he didn't support her business. And, well, that's what the duck was telling her. But we identified what was the truth. The truth was he cooked her dinner so she could go out to have meetings with clients, and she didn't have to cook dinner. He would tidy the house up and go in and tidy up her office to make sure she had a clutter-free environment to work in. And all of those things were identified as support. And it opened her eyes to think, yeah, he really is supporting. He really is a good guy. I think I want to stay with him. So, you know what? I'm pleased to say she's still happily married. How can you generate your list of duck truths? It takes but one positive thought, just one. And in a coaching opportunity, it takes just one shot to get a duck out of your head. Then once we take down one duck, generally an entire flock will fall with it. Reframe the statement from the duck. What is the truth? So scientists call the system of reframing your thoughts. And I don't mean standing in front of a mirror telling yourself lies. Like, I cannot tell, stand in front of a mirror and say, oh, I'm a Elle Macpherson, a top model, and I have all that kind of pretty much garbage, because that's what it is. It's garbage. But you should be able to stand in front of a mirror and tell yourself the truth. But if you can't tell yourself the truth, then where are you going to be in life? So telling yourself the truth is a form of metacognition, meaning that we think and question our own thoughts, because we believe that, we've been taught to believe that our thoughts control us, but it's actually the reverse. We can control our thoughts. So reframing is not the same as positive thinking. It's deliberate, positive self-talk, and it is the fastest way to replace your negative mind chatter that limits us and makes us feel bad. So positive self-talk was that list of Sally's that I showed you back here. This is all intentional, positive self-talk in the form of statements that reprogram our thinking about ourselves, about our abilities, about our situations, which flows on to improve our mood and general sense of well-being. It's important to note that these positive thoughts here are not self-delusion, as I said. It feels a little bit awkward to start with. Like any new habit, this needs to become a habit. So I challenge you to start reprogramming your brain and do it every day intentionally for 30 days and see what makes a difference in your life. I guarantee your behavior will change. I guarantee you will not move into stinking thinking and then self-defeating games. I guarantee your life will change simply by the thoughts that you think. So all of this is called, psychology is known as cognitive reprogramming, not brainwashing, reprogramming in all the positive ways. You don't have to drink any Kool-Aid here. So it acts, to correct our faulty thinking, and faulty thinking is just a bad habit, which is beautiful. I can't tell you when I found out, oh, it's just a habit. Guess what? Habits can be broken. Habits can be changed. It just takes a little work, and you have to roll up your sleeves and shut the duck up and do the work in order to make this massive impact on your life. So what happens? Some of my clients say that, 2 hours with me changed the direction of Ruth's business. What a valuable time. And she highly recommends some coaching. But like I said, you could do this on your own if you wish. Get out the Kleenex and spend some time in a safe place. You could do this with a trusted friend, but a trusted friend who's there just to support the truth, not somebody who's already adding ducks. I could not have done this with my mom, for example. And I certainly couldn't do it with my husband. My husband is, the other way, super supportive and saying, oh, how could you even believe that to be true? He tells me I'm beautiful every day, and I look at him going, you must be blind. But sure, okay, great, thanks. So, making sure that you're with the right person. If you want to get positive results, this is the day, ladies. If you have ever broken a cigarette in two and said, I'm not smoking anymore, if you've ever pushed dessert away and say, no more sugar for me, if you ever made that decision to say, I'm changing my life, ladies, let today be the day for you where you refuse to think negative thoughts by substituting them with constructive ones. Remember, what I'm telling you today is not new. This is not new science. This has been around forever. So this is actually a saying on your screen that comes from the indigenous Americans. This is Cherokee, and this is a Cherokee old fable tale. So an old man told his grandson, my son, there is a battle between two wolves inside us. And I say there's a duck battle going on inside us. One is evil. It is anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, inferior, lies, and ego. The other is good. It is joy, peace, love, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, and truth. So can you see the ducks in that statement? The lies are the ducks, the truth are what we really stand on. And the boy thought about it and asked, Grandfather, which wolf wins? And the old man quietly said, the one you feed. So here is, believe it or not, this comes from the Bible, whatever your denomination is. And but this is, again, like I said, just like the Cherokee saying, this is nothing new about how we are supposed to think about ourselves and others and the world around us. So my friend Paul wrote this in his letter to the Philippians over 2,000 years ago. And he said, finally, brothers, and I'm going to say, finally, sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely. And ladies, you are lovely. You are lovely. Whatever is commendable, wherever there is excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Ladies, my request for you today is, please look at what life could look like after you shut the ducks up. So this is my life in snapshots. These are my Wonder Woman shoes right here. And I wear them every time I speak on stage for Shut the Duck Up. Ducks gave me a more meaningful relationship. This is my wonderful husband. This is the man I crossed the globe for, and I'm so glad I did.
Oh.
You know, these are the adventures that I've been on. This is my eldest daughter, and for the very first time we went sea-doing on the lake, and I drove because I had always had a duck saying I couldn't do it. This is me presenting in front of 550 women at the One Fearless Woman Conference in Edmonton, Alberta, presenting what I'm presenting to you today. In high heels, on a stage. We're back to Mud Hero, and just me generally being a goofball on what we call Canada Day. July 1st is Canada Day. And so we celebrate the confederation of the country. So it allows me to be who I am when the ducks tell me I should be somebody else, or the ducks tell me I'm not going to be successful, or the ducks tell me, as a person who's not a psychologist, who doesn't have a medical background, does not have a counseling or a PhD or a psychiatrist, can share the truth about how you can rewire your brain for success in life and business. I shut those ducks up today, and I shut them up every time I walk on a stage and work with a client, because I honestly believe when you believe the truth, it sets you free and you can have this amazing life. I did not have this life before the ducks.